Do you want your brisket to hang like that under its own weight, but pull like that and be soft as butter? Stay tuned. Have you been wanting to try a brisket? You're a little bit anxious, a little bit overwhelmed, you know, they're expensive, you don't know where to trim the fat. What is a decal? Let me show you. When you're trimming, you want the brisket to be kind of square so it smokes a little bit easier. If there's like just stuff hanging off like this, get rid of it. If the fat is over 1/4 of an inch, half an inch thick, trim it down. If the meat is really thin on the end, trim the end and round it until the meat is thick enough so it smokes right, because if it's too thin, it'll just kind of like char up. That's kind of it. What is a decal? Okay, this fat strand that runs through here, this big clumpity fat dude down there, that kind of separates the flat and the point, because they actually are two muscle groups that overlap, and they run like this, and so there's this opening right here, and that opening has a lot of fat in it, and that fat is the decal, and you have to trim some of that. Also, this is from when it's packed. A lot of times it's heat sealed, and so you're getting this browning is a little bit of the meat being cooked. We're gonna come back, just kind of find where this is while trimming the brown off of it. We're gonna save some of the fat in the pot, and we're gonna make our own tallow with it. Super, super easy, render it down. I'm gonna add some bay leaves, maybe an onion, some peppercorns. You can add garlic, thyme, rosemary, render it down, and then we're gonna use the tallow later to pour on the brisket when we wrap it. Tallow sizzling, let's season this up. All we wanna do is add a binder, and for that binder, you just want something kind of sticky that goes on here that helps hold the seasoning to it. That's it. Do you wanna use a tiny bit of oil? Sure. Do you wanna use soy sauce? Great. Worcestershire sauce, mustard, use something, bind it together. You could use mayo, it doesn't matter. A lot of people use mustard because it is neutral when it cooks over a long period of time. There's debates on, oh, the oils seal up the pores. Well, there's no pores on the inside of the cow. The pores are on the skin, they're not in here. But if you believe that, don't use oil. Use something. Use Korean gochujang and season it with gochugaru pepper flakes and play with it. It doesn't matter. Add a binder. I'm just using yellow mustard. You really want to rub it in well. As far as techniques for the rub, just make sure it's covered. I'm using what I call a Texas style rub. It's super simple. Salt, pepper, a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder, just adding some flavors in there, a little bit of paprika. But if you notice, I'm using super coarse black pepper. I love the way the coarse black pepper adds a bite to it. We're gonna go high as we season it. If you notice, you're getting a better dispersion when you season it higher than lower. We're just gonna make sure the sides, everything, all around, nice and seasoned. Remember, it looks like a lot, but you're only seasoning the outside of an 18-pound brisket. You're not seasoning the inside, right? So even though the outside is crusty and filled, the inside isn't. Don't be afraid to liberally season it, because every time you lift it up, it all falls off anyway. Not all, a lot. Let's throw it on the smoker. All right, guys, let's talk time and temperature really fast. Listen, I'm cooking this brisket at 235. As long as you're cooking a brisket at 250, between 250 and 225, you're probably in that sweet zone. It's not necessarily about the temperature, and it's not about the time, and I can't tell you when to start it and when to finish it. You kind of have to know a parameter, a guideline of it. I'm gonna cook it until the bark is where I want it, until that bark is nice and crusty and it's formed all the way around the top, and you have these little pools of Yellowstone blurbly bubbly brisket juicy goodness forming on top. It's awesome. That's when I wrap it. When I wrap it, I like adding tallow to it, and when I add tallow to a brisket, I like it to be the tallow that I've cut and rendered from that brisket's fat. It's gonna help preserve the brisket, keep it moist during the cook. Put it back on the grill, same temperature, let it go until it's done. When is it done? I don't know, they're all different. My brisket is 17 pounds, yours could be 15. If I give you my time, it's not gonna be the same for your time. When it's done is when you can take your probe and you slide it in and you can turn the probe around like this inside of the brisket and it moves freely like it's sliding through butter, that's when your brisket is done. Take it off, let it rest. Could be anywhere between 190, 195 to 215 degrees. That's why I can't tell you pull it at 205. It might not be done. You might be ruining it. You gotta know how to test it, and you have to just make briskets to get experience. 16 hours later, brisket. Look at the size difference and how much it renders down when you cook it. That's one of the main reasons you really want to square it up. Make sure everything's rounded and perfect because it's going to cook down, it's going to render down. So I'd love to separate our flat from our point. And to do that, honestly, I'm just gonna cut it in half. Look at that. Because of the way the grains run, you really want to slice your flat this way and then turn your point and slice it this way. And you want to make sure your brisket hangs under its own weight, but pulls apart when you yank on it. That would really go. Slice it up, use it on top of burgers, make brisket sandwiches, giant piled high sandwiches, a little bit of barbecue sauce, whatever you want to do. Don't let it be intimidating. Let your smoker do the work for you. That's why they're there. Just do it. Just Shia LaBeouf that brisket. Get out there, do it, play with it, and stop following recipes that say do it this way or do it that way or this is the perfect way, or if you follow how I trim this brisket, you'll know how to trim a brisket. It's not true. Every brisket's different. You're gonna have to do it a couple times to get used to what they all look like and how some of them have so much extra fat, especially in the decal or not. You just have to get in there and do it, but don't be afraid of it. Low and slow it. Wrap it after a couple hours, that way it protects it. Take it until that probe is soft inside. Practice makes perfect. I'm just gonna, stop it. Sir,